My name is Jamar Wilson, and at 68 years old, I never thought my own flesh and blood would betray me. Standing on my own porch, key refusing to turn in the lock, I felt my heart sink as 30 years of memories flashed before my eyes. The call to my daughter Amanda revealed the ugly truth about family, greed, and the depths people will sink to when money beckons. If you are watching this story unfold, take a moment to subscribe to this channel, because what happened next changed everything I thought I knew about justice. Life has a funny way of testing us when we least expect it. Before everything fell apart, I had what most would consider a good life. After working for 42 years as an investment advisor at a respected firm in Boston, I had finally settled into retirement. My career had been successful enough to provide for my family and secure our future, though we were never what you might call wealthy. Everything we had, I worked hard for. The centerpiece of my life's achievements was our home. A beautiful 2-story colonial house in Lexington, just outside Boston. The kind of place with character, with history in its wooden floors and memories in every room. I purchased it 30 years ago when the kids were still young. The mortgage payments weren't always easy, especially when putting 2 children through college, but we managed. 7 years ago I made the final payment. That feeling of truly owning your home outright is something special. My wife Elaine and I had planned to grow old in that house together. She had lovingly decorated every room, planted the garden out back that bloomed with her favorite dahlias each summer. But life rarely goes according to plan. 2 years ago, Elaine lost her battle with pancreatic cancer. The doctors gave her 6 months. She fought for 8. Every day without her still feels like walking through the world with half my heart missing. After Elaine passed, the house became even more precious to me. It held all our memories, the echoes of laughter, the whispers of shared secrets. I could still feel her presence in the kitchen where she loved to bake, or in the reading nook where she spent countless afternoons with her novels. My children, Amanda and Thomas, reacted differently to their mother's passing. Thomas, my son, lives across the country in Seattle with his wife and their twin boys. He works in software development, doing something with computers that I pretend to understand when he explains it. He calls regularly, visits when he can, though not as often as either of us would like given the distance. He has always been the steady one, methodical and thoughtful like his mother. Amanda, my daughter, lives just 20 minutes away. At 38, she works in pharmaceutical sales and married Darren about 5 years ago. Darren sells real estate, or at least that's what he claims to do. From what I could tell, he spent more time at the local casino than showing properties. After Elaine died, Amanda started visiting less frequently. Our conversations grew shorter, more superficial. I noticed the change but chalked it up to grief, affecting everyone differently. About 6 months after Elaine's passing, Amanda started bringing up the subject of the house. Just casual comments at first. "Dad, this place is so big for just one person. Have you thought about downsizing? The maintenance must be such a burden. Property values in this neighborhood are at an all-time high right now." I always gave the same answer. The house was staying in the family. In my will, I had arranged for it to pass equally to both Amanda and Thomas. They could decide together what to do with it when I was gone. This answer seemed to frustrate Amanda, though she tried not to show it. The visits became even less frequent after that. When they did occur, Darren often accompanied her. I noticed how his eyes would scan the rooms, as if taking inventory. Once, I caught him opening drawers in my study when he thought no one was looking. Still, I never imagined what they were planning. Not until I returned from my trip to Alaska. The vacation had been my first real break since Elaine died. Thomas had suggested it, practically insisted on it. A 10-day cruise through the Inside Passage, something Elaine and I had always talked about doing someday. I had been reluctant to go alone, but eventually agreed it might do me good to get away. Thomas had even helped me book the tickets. The trip was exactly what I needed. The majesty of the glaciers, the peaceful solitude, the chance to breathe fresh air and reflect. I returned home feeling renewed, with a sense of peace I hadn't felt in months. That feeling lasted exactly as long as it took me to climb the 3 steps to my front porch and try my key in the door. The key wouldn't turn. I tried again, thinking maybe the lock had stiffened in the spring humidity. Nothing. I checked to make sure I was using the right key. Tried again. Still nothing. That was when I noticed the new deadbolt, one I definitely hadn't installed. Standing on my own porch, locked out of my own home, I felt the first stirrings of what would soon become a storm. My hands trembled slightly as I pulled out my cell phone and dialed Amanda's number. Part of me already knew what had happened, but my mind refused to accept the possibility that my own daughter could do something like this. The phone rang 3 times before she answered. "Hello?" Her voice sounded cautious, guarded. "Amanda, it's Dad. I just got back from Alaska and my key doesn't work in the door. There's a new deadbolt. What's going on?" A long pause followed, then a sigh that seemed more annoyed than concerned. "Dad, we need to talk about this. Darren and I have been thinking, and well, we made a decision that's best for everyone." "What decision, Amanda? Why can't I get into my house?" I kept my voice level, though my heart was racing. Another pause. I heard murmuring in the background, Darren's voice saying something I couldn't quite make out. "It's not really your house anymore, Dad." The words came out in a rush. "We spoke with an attorney. Since Mom died, and with you getting older, we felt it was time to make some changes. The deed has been transferred. It's our house now." The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. I steadied myself against the porch railing. "That's impossible, Amanda. I never signed anything transferring the deed." "Well, you see, there were some papers you signed a while back, when you were not really paying attention. After Mom died, you were so distracted." The implications of what she was saying hit me like a physical blow. My own daughter had tricked me into signing away my home. "Amanda, this is illegal. You can't just take someone's house." Her tone hardened. "Look, Dad, it's already done. You're getting older. You can't manage this place by yourself. It's our house now, you old bum." The insult stung more than I expected. I heard Darren's voice growing louder in the background, then the sound of the phone being grabbed from Amanda. "Listen here, Jamar." Darren had never called me by my first name before, always Mr. Wilson or occasionally Dad when he was trying to get on my good side. "We've got plans for this place. The market's hot, and we need the money. I've got some debts that need paying, and this house is going to solve all our problems. So find somewhere else to stay, because we're selling it next month." I took a deep breath, feeling an unexpected calm settle over me. "I see." My measured response seemed to throw Darren off balance. He had clearly expected yelling, threats, or pleading. "That's it? I see?" He sounded almost disappointed. "What would you like me to say, Darren?" "Just that you understand this is happening whether you like it or not." "I understand perfectly," I replied, then ended the call. I stood on the porch for a few minutes, processing what had just happened. As the shock began to wear off, I noticed my neighbor Harold watching from his driveway. He was watering his azaleas, but his attention was fixed on me. "Everything all right, Jamar?" he called over, concern evident in his voice. Harold and I had been neighbors for 20 years. His wife Dorothy often brought over casseroles after Elaine passed. They were good people. "Not exactly," I admitted. "Seems I've been locked out of my own house." Harold put down his hose and walked over. I gave him the abbreviated version of what had just happened. His face darkened with each detail. "That's outrageous," he said when I finished. "What are you going to do? Should we call the police?" "I'm not sure the police can help with this. Sounds like it might be a civil matter," I sighed. "First thing I need is a place to stay tonight." "You'll stay with us," Harold said without hesitation. "Dorothy would have my hide if I let you go to a hotel. We've got the guest room all made up." That first night at Harold's was one of the longest of my life. I lay awake staring at the unfamiliar ceiling, replaying the conversation with Amanda and Darren, and thinking about all the warning signs I had missed. There had been the missing financial documents from my home office. Papers that I could have sworn were in my filing cabinet suddenly nowhere to be found. Amanda's increasing interest in my property deed and mortgage documents, questions that seemed innocent at the time but now took on a sinister hue. And Darren's sudden friendliness months before, his unexpected visits, his questions about my investments and retirement accounts. I had thought he was finally taking an interest in family matters, maybe trying to improve our relationship. How naive I had been. The next morning, I called Thomas. He needed to know what was happening. "They did what?" His voice rose in disbelief as I explained the situation. "Dad, this is elder abuse. It's fraud. I'm booking a flight right now. I'll be there tomorrow." "Wait, Thomas," I said. "Don't come just yet. There are some things I need to take care of first. I need you to trust me on this." "What things?" "Dad, they stole your house." "I know, son, and we're going to handle it. But I need you to wait just a little longer. Can you do that for me?" Thomas reluctantly agreed, though I could tell he was furious and concerned. After promising to call him daily with updates, I hung up. Harold was sitting at the kitchen table when I came downstairs. Dorothy had gone out to run errands, so it was just the two of us. He pushed a cup of coffee toward me as I sat down. "You seem awfully calm for someone who just had his house stolen," Harold observed. I took a sip of the coffee before answering. "The truth is, Harold, I've been expecting something like this. Not exactly this, but something. I've seen the way Darren looks at my house. I've noticed things missing, caught Amanda snooping through my papers. I just didn't want to believe my own daughter would go this far. So what now? You said the police can't help." A small smile crossed my face. "I have a plan. Actually, the plan is already in motion. I just need to make one phone call." Harold looked at me curiously. "What kind of plan?" "One that will give Amanda and Darren exactly what they deserve." 6 months earlier, I had noticed something concerning at our monthly family dinner. Amanda and Darren arrived late, tension evident between them. During dessert, when Amanda went to the kitchen to help bring out coffee, Darren stepped outside to take a phone call. Curious, I followed quietly and overheard part of his conversation. "I know I'm late again. No, I need more time. Look, there's this property that's coming available soon, worth at least $600,000. Yes, I have a guaranteed buyer lined up. Just give me 60 days. The desperation in his voice alarmed me. When he came back inside, his smile seemed forced, his eyes darting nervously around the room. Later that evening, I pretended to go upstairs for a nap, but instead sat quietly in the darkness of my bedroom. 20 minutes later, I heard someone enter my home office across the hall. Peering through the crack in my door, I saw Amanda rifling through my desk drawers, pulling out folders and examining documents. When she found my property deed, she took pictures of it with her phone before carefully returning everything exactly as she had found it. That night, after they left, I called Michael Jackson, my attorney of 30 years and one of my closest friends. "Michael, I need to see you. It's important." We met for lunch the next day at our usual spot, a quiet corner table at Sullivan's Steakhouse. Michael listened intently as I detailed what I had observed. "I hate to say it, Jamar, but this sounds familiar," he said when I finished. "I've handled dozens of elder abuse cases over the years. Adult children or their spouses thinking they're entitled to assets before the parent is gone. Usually starts with small things, escalates to bank accounts, and sometimes ends with the house. You think that's what this is? Elder abuse?" The term made me uncomfortable. I wasn't some helpless old man being taken advantage of. Or at least, I didn't want to be. It has all the warning signs. The question is, what do you want to do about it? I considered this for a moment. I want to protect what's mine, not just for me, but for Thomas too. And I want Amanda to understand there are consequences for betraying family. Michael nodded. Then we need to set up some protections, and fast, before they make their move. Over the next several weeks, Michael and I worked with a financial advisor to restructure the ownership of my assets, particularly the house. We created an irrevocable trust with specific conditions, naming Thomas as co-trustee, along with a bank trust officer. The house was transferred into the trust, with stipulations about how it could be used or sold. Crucially, we designed everything to appear vulnerable on the surface. I left certain documents visible in my home office, ones that suggested the house was still in my name alone. We created a fake deed transfer form with obvious legal weaknesses that would never stand up in court. "It's like setting up a security system but leaving one window unlocked," Michael explained. "We're creating a path of least resistance, one that seems easy but is actually a trap." The hardest part was not confronting Amanda directly. Every time she visited, every time she made those subtle comments about selling the house, I had to pretend I didn't suspect anything. The emotional toll was immense. There were nights I lay awake wondering if I was being paranoid, if perhaps I was misjudging my own daughter. But then, I'd remember the look on Darren's face when he examined the crown molding or commented on the hardwood floors. I'd recall Amanda's seemingly casual questions about my will and estate planning, and my resolve would strengthen. The final piece of the plan came together just before my Alaska trip. I had security cameras installed throughout the house, hidden in smoke detectors, bookshelves, and light fixtures. The security company assured me they would record continuously to cloud storage, accessible from anywhere with an internet connection. "This feels like something out of a spy movie," I told Michael as we tested the system. "Sometimes reality is stranger than fiction," he replied. "Are you sure you want to go through with this? It's not too late to confront Amanda directly. Try to work things out as a family." I thought about it, truly considered taking the direct approach. But something told me we were past that point. Amanda and Darren had already crossed a line. They just didn't know I knew it yet. "I'm sure," I said finally. "They've made their choice. Now they need to live with the consequences." The night before leaving for Alaska, I set the trap. I left an opened letter from my bank on the desk, mentioning a certificate of deposit maturing soon. I made sure the fake deed transfer form was visible in my partially open filing cabinet, and I deliberately left my estate planning documents in a folder marked "Important" in the top drawer. Then I carefully placed one long gray hair across the drawer, positioning it so it would fall if the drawer was opened. An old detective novel trick, but effective. When I returned 10 days later to find my hair gone and my key useless in the lock, I knew they had taken the bait. Everything had gone according to plan. Sitting in Harold's guest room, I opened my laptop and typed a brief email to Michael. "Our plan worked. They took the house. Time for phase 2. Michael's reply came within minutes. "I'll file the emergency injunction this afternoon. Meet me at my office at 2. Bring your phone so we can access the security footage." I arrived at Michael's downtown office 15 minutes early, my stomach knotting with a mix of anticipation and dread. His secretary Susan, who had known me for decades, gave me a sympathetic smile as she showed me in. "Jamar," Michael stood to shake my hand. "Are you ready for this?" "As ready as I'll ever be to watch my daughter betray me," I replied. We sat at his conference table, and I logged into the security camera system. The interface showed thumbnail images from each camera, organized by date and time. I clicked on the day I left for Alaska. The footage showed Amanda and Darren entering the house less than 2 hours after my airport shuttle departed. They used a key I didn't know existed. "She must have made a copy at some point," I murmured. We watched as they methodically went through my office, Darren finding the fake deed transfer form exactly where I had left it. "Jackpot," he said on the recording, holding it up for Amanda to see. "This is all we need. Your signature is already on file from those birthday cards you signed for him. With a little practice, we can make this work." Amanda looked uncomfortable. "Are you sure about this, Darren? What if he contests it? By the time he gets back from Alaska and figures out what happened, the house will be on the market. We'll have a buyer lined up, cash in hand. We can be in Miami before any court date gets set." The cavalier way they discussed defrauding me sent a chill down my spine. We continued watching as they returned 3 days later with someone Darren introduced as my buddy from the county records office. This man examined the fake deed, nodded, and took it with him. "He'll push it through without the usual verification," Darren explained to Amanda. "By tomorrow, the house will be legally ours." The final clip showed them changing the locks the day before my return. "This is even more damning than I expected," Michael said, taking notes. "Conspiracy, fraud, falsifying government records. Your son-in-law's buddy from the records office is looking at serious charges too." "What about Amanda?" I asked. The footage had made it clear that while she was involved, Darren was the driving force. Michael sighed. "She's complicit, Jamar. She may have been reluctant, but she participated knowingly in a criminal act." I nodded, feeling a profound sadness settle over me. "What's our next step?" "I've already filed for an emergency injunction to prevent them from selling the house. We have a hearing scheduled for Thursday morning. Given this evidence, the judge will almost certainly rule in our favor." "And then what?" "Then we have options. Civil suit for damages, criminal charges, or we negotiate a settlement that includes them signing the house back to the trust where it legally belongs." I stood and walked to the window, looking out at the Boston skyline. The thought of seeing my daughter in court, possibly facing criminal charges, made my heart ache. But the alternative, letting them steal my home and everything Elaine and I had worked for, was unthinkable. "I need to call Thomas," I said finally. "He should be here for this." Thomas arrived the next morning, having taken the first flight out of Seattle. I met him at the airport, and the moment he saw me, he pulled me into a tight hug. "I should have been here," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I should have seen this coming." "There's no way you could have known," I assured him. "I lived 20 minutes from them and didn't want to believe it myself." On the drive back to Harold's, I explained everything: the suspicions, the plan with Michael, the security footage. Thomas listened in stunned silence. So the house is actually safe? It's in a trust? Yes. They think they have it, but legally, they don't. And you're sure the footage shows them clearly committing fraud? Crystal clear. Michael says it's some of the most compelling evidence he's seen in an elder abuse case. Thomas shook his head in disbelief. My own sister. How could she do this to you? To us? I had no answer. That question had kept me awake every night since returning from Alaska. When we arrived at Harold's, Thomas insisted on driving by the house. As we slowly cruised past, I saw a real estate agent's car in the driveway. A woman in a business suit was taking photos of the exterior, while Darren gestured enthusiastically, pointing out features. They're already trying to sell it, Thomas said, his hands tightening on the steering wheel. We should stop this right now. Confront them with the police. Not yet. I placed a hand on his arm. We need to let this play out exactly as Michael has planned. The legal injunction will be served tomorrow. That's when they'll realize they're in trouble. And until then? Until then, we wait. The waiting was excruciating. Every time my phone rang, I expected it to be Amanda, either with more insults or suddenly realizing the trouble she was in. But there was nothing. Just silence. The injunction was served the following afternoon. From Harold's front porch, we watched the process server approach my house, ring the bell, and hand the documents to a confused-looking Amanda. Even from across the street, I could see the color drain from her face as she read the first page. 10 minutes later, my phone exploded with notifications. 6 missed calls from Amanda, 3 from Darren, and a series of increasingly frantic text messages. Dad, we need to talk. Please call me back. It's urgent. Dad, there's been a misunderstanding. Answer your phone. I showed the messages to Thomas. And so it begins. Are you going to call her back? I shook my head. Not yet. Let them sweat for a while. Thomas gave me a long look. This isn't just about the house anymore, is it? You want them to understand how it feels to have control taken away from you. Maybe, I admitted. Is that wrong? No, Dad. After what they did, I think it's completely understandable. Thursday morning arrived with leaden skies, threatening rain, fitting weather for what awaited us in court. Thomas and I met Michael at the courthouse steps at 8:30, 30 minutes before our scheduled hearing. Are you ready for this? Michael asked as we walked through security. As ready as I'll ever be to face my own daughter in court, I replied. We were directed to courtroom 3, where several other cases were scheduled before ours. Amanda and Darren arrived 10 minutes after us, accompanied by a young attorney who looked barely out of law school. Amanda's eyes were red-rimmed, her face pale. She tried to catch my gaze, but I deliberately looked away. Darren, on the other hand, seemed more annoyed than concerned, checking his phone repeatedly and whispering urgently to their attorney. He had clearly underestimated the seriousness of the situation. When our case was called, Judge Patricia Morales, a stern-looking woman in her 60s, peered at us over reading glasses. I understand we have an emergency injunction regarding a property dispute between family members. Michael stood. Yes, Your Honor. My client, Jamar Wilson, is seeking an injunction to prevent the sale of his home, which was fraudulently transferred to his daughter and son-in-law. Amanda's attorney jumped up. Your Honor, my clients maintain the transfer was legitimate. Mr. Wilson signed the deed willingly. Actually, Your Honor, Michael countered, we have video evidence showing the defendants forging my client's signature and conspiring with a county employee to fraudulently record the deed. The judge's eyebrows rose. Video evidence? Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Wilson had security cameras installed in his home prior to leaving for vacation. The footage clearly shows the defendants entering without permission and discussing their plans to forge documents. The young attorney looked stunned, turning to Amanda and Darren with confusion written across his face. Clearly, they hadn't shared that detail with him. Your Honor, he stammered, my clients were not aware of any recording devices. Furthermore, Mr. Wilson has been showing signs of cognitive decline. My clients were acting in his best interest. My blood boiled at this new accusation. They were now claiming I was mentally incompetent? Michael was prepared. We anticipated this defense, Your Honor. We have Mr. Wilson's most recent medical records, including a cognitive assessment performed just 3 weeks ago, showing he is completely competent to manage his affairs. He handed a folder to the clerk, who passed it to the judge. Judge Morales took several minutes to review the documents, her expression unreadable. Mr. Wilson has been my client for over 30 years, Michael continued. In anticipation of potential issues, he took the precaution of having his primary physician and a geriatric specialist evaluate him. Both concluded he is of sound mind. The judge looked up from the medical reports. These seem to be in order. Now, about this video evidence. Michael handed a tablet to the clerk. We've prepared a compilation of the most relevant footage. It runs about 10 minutes. As the video played on the courtroom's monitor, I couldn't bear to watch. Instead, I studied Amanda's face. She seemed to shrink into herself with each damning moment, while Darren's expression cycled between disbelief and anger. When the video reached the part where Darren discussed their plans to be in Miami with the cash before any court date, he suddenly stood up. "This is entrapment!" he shouted. "He set us up!" "Mr. Brooks, control yourself," Judge Morales warned sharply. "He knew what we were planning. He left those papers out deliberately. This whole thing was a setup." "Mr. Brooks, if you don't sit down and be quiet, I'll have you removed from my courtroom." Darren's attorney tugged frantically at his sleeve, finally getting him to sit down, but the damage was done. His outburst had essentially admitted their guilt. Judge Morales took off her glasses and rubbed the bridge of her nose. "I've seen enough. The emergency injunction is granted. The defendants are prohibited from selling, transferring, or encumbering the property at 1742 Maple Street until the ownership dispute is resolved." She looked directly at Amanda and Darren. "And I strongly suggest you both retain separate experienced criminal attorneys. Based on what I've seen here today, you may be facing serious charges." The hearing concluded, and as we stood to leave, Amanda approached me, tears streaming down her face. "Dad, please, can we talk? This has all gotten out of control." I looked at my daughter, this person I had raised, loved, taught right from wrong. In her eyes I saw not just fear but something that looked like genuine regret. "What's there to talk about, Amanda? You called me an old bum. You and Darren stole my home, planned to sell it and run off with the money. Which part of that would you like to discuss?" "It wasn't like that," she insisted. "Well, not entirely. Darren has gambling debts. Dangerous people are after him. He convinced me this was the only way. I know it was wrong, but I was scared." Thomas stepped between us. "Save it for the court, Amanda. You made your choice." As we walked away, Darren confronted us at the courthouse doors. "You think you're so smart, don't you, old man? Setting us up like that? This isn't over." Michael placed a restraining hand on Thomas, who looked ready to physically confront his brother-in-law. "Mr. Brooks, I suggest you stop talking now. Every word you say can and will be used against you. And if that's a threat you just made, it could constitute witness intimidation." Darren stormed off, leaving Amanda standing alone, looking lost and broken. On the drive back to Harold's, Thomas asked the question that had been weighing on my mind. "What now, Dad? Do we press criminal charges?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me wants them to face the full consequences of what they did. Another part of me remembers Amanda as a little girl, running to me with skinned knees for me to kiss better." "She's not that little girl anymore," Thomas said gently. "She tried to steal your home, your security." "I know." The weight of the decision felt crushing. When we arrived at Harold's, I found a message on my cell phone from Michael. The news had gotten worse. Someone had been in the house, destroying things. Neighbors had called the police after hearing crashes and shouting. "We need to go there now," Thomas said after I relayed the message. The police were still at the house when we arrived. An officer stopped us at the perimeter of yellow tape they had strung across the front yard. "I'm sorry, sir, this is an active investigation scene." "This is my house," I explained, showing my ID. "I'm Jamar Wilson." The officer checked my ID against a clipboard he was holding. "Mr. Wilson, I'm Officer Reynolds. We received calls about a disturbance. When we arrived, we found evidence of vandalism inside. The suspects had already fled. Would you like to come in and tell us if anything is missing?" The damage was extensive and methodical. Furniture overturned, mirrors broken, walls punched through in places. But the most painful sight was in the living room. The collection of family photos that had lined the mantel and walls had been smashed, the pictures torn. Photos of Elaine seemed to have been specifically targeted. In our bedroom, Elaine's jewelry box had been emptied, her precious items nowhere to be found. The quilt she had made for our 30th anniversary was slashed to ribbons. As I surveyed the destruction, a police officer approached. "Mr. Wilson, we found this in the kitchen." He handed me a slip of paper. On it, scrawled in what was clearly Darren's handwriting, were the words, You want to play games? Game on, old man. I passed the note to the officer. I believe my son-in-law is responsible for this. As the police documented the damage and took my statement, I felt something inside me break. These weren't just things being destroyed. They were memories, connections to Elaine, to our life together. When the police finally left, promising to follow up, Thomas and I stood in the ruined living room. "Dad," Thomas said softly, picking up a torn photograph of his mother, "I think it's time to stop holding back. They need to face the full consequences of what they've done." Looking at Elaine's smiling face in the damaged photo, I couldn't help but agree. By the following week, our legal counterattack was in full swing. Michael filed a civil lawsuit against Amanda and Darren for fraud, elder abuse, and emotional distress. The district attorney, after reviewing our evidence, opened a criminal investigation. The county employee who had helped with the fraudulent deed transfer was placed on administrative leave, pending an investigation. The local news caught wind of the story. Without mentioning names, they ran a piece on elder abuse and property fraud, citing a recent case involving a prominent retired financial advisor. I declined their request for an interview, but the publicity added another layer of pressure on Amanda and Darren. Amanda's pharmaceutical company placed her on leave when they learned of the allegations. Darren's real estate broker license came under review by the state licensing board. Their carefully constructed lives were unraveling, thread by thread. 3 days after the news story aired, I received a text message from Amanda asking to meet alone, without lawyers or Thomas present. Against Michael's advice, I agreed to see her at a coffee shop halfway between Harold's house and her apartment. She was already there when I arrived, seated in a corner booth, a cup of untouched coffee in front of her. She looked like she hadn't slept in days, her usual carefully applied makeup absent, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. "Thank you for coming," she said as I slid into the booth across from her. "What do you want, Amanda?" I kept my voice neutral, though seeing her so distressed stirred complicated feelings. I wanted to explain. Not excuse, just explain. She took a deep breath. "Darren has a gambling problem. It started small, just poker games with friends. Then it escalated to casinos, online betting, anything he could find. I didn't know how bad it was until 6 months ago." She stared down at her coffee. "He lost everything. Our savings, maxed out credit cards. Then he started borrowing from people you don't want to owe money to. They threatened him, threatened me. Said they'd take our house if he didn't pay. So you decided to take mine instead," I said flatly. Tears filled her eyes. "He convinced me it was the only way. Said you were getting older, that the house was too much for you anyway. That we'd use some of the money to set you up in a nice retirement community. I knew it was wrong, but I was scared, Dad. These people Darren owes money to, they're dangerous. You could have come to me, Amanda. Told me the truth. Asked for help. I know that now. But Darren said you'd never understand, that you'd just lecture us about responsibility. And I was too ashamed to admit how bad things had gotten." I studied my daughter's face, looking for signs of manipulation, of falsehood. All I saw was exhaustion and genuine remorse. "Where is Darren now?" "I don't know. He disappeared after the hearing. Hasn't come home, won't answer his phone. I think he's running." This surprised me. Running from what? The legal consequences? From the people he owes money to. The court appearance was in the newspaper. Now everyone knows we don't have a house to sell to pay his debts. I absorbed this information, considering its implications. "Amanda, what do you want from me now?" "Honestly, I don't know." She wiped at her tears with a napkin. "Part of me wants to ask for forgiveness, but I know I don't deserve it. What we did was unforgivable. I betrayed you in the worst way possible." "Yes, you did. I remember when I was little, and you taught me to ride a bike. Every time I fell, you'd help me up and say, 'It's not how many times you fall that matters, Panda Bear. It's how many times you get back up.'" She used the childhood nickname I hadn't heard in years. "I've fallen so far this time, Dad. I don't know if I can get back up alone." The memory hit me hard. Little Amanda in pigtails, determined to master that bike, her knees scraped but her spirit unbroken. Where had that girl gone? When had she become this person capable of such betrayal? Before I could respond, a sharp pain lanced through my chest. It felt like someone had placed a vice around my ribcage and was slowly tightening it. I gasped, clutching at my shirt front. "Dad?" Amanda's voice seemed to come from very far away. "Dad, what's wrong?" The pain intensified. I tried to speak but couldn't find the breath. The edges of my vision darkened. "Someone call an ambulance!" I heard Amanda shout, panic in her voice. "My father's having a heart attack!" Then blackness enveloped me. I woke to the steady beeping of monitors and the antiseptic smell of a hospital room. Thomas sat in a chair beside the bed, his head drooping with exhaustion. On the other side, to my surprise, sat Amanda, her eyes red-rimmed but alert. "Dad?" Thomas noticed I was awake first. "Thank God. How do you feel?" "Like I've been hit by a truck," I managed, my voice raspy. A doctor appeared, a young woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner. "Mr. Wilson, I'm Dr. Chen. You've had a mild heart attack. We've placed a stent in one of your coronary arteries that was severely blocked. You're stable now, but you'll need to take it easy for a while." She explained my condition, the medications I would need, and the lifestyle changes recommended. Throughout her explanation, I was aware of Amanda and Thomas exchanging looks across my bed. After the doctor left, Thomas leaned forward. "Amanda saved your life, Dad. She recognized the symptoms immediately and got help. The paramedics said her quick action made all the difference." I turned to look at my daughter. "Thank you." She shook her head. "Don't thank me. This is my fault. The doctor said stress was a major factor in your heart attack, and I'm the one who caused that stress." An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. Finally, Thomas stood. "I'm going to get some coffee. Amanda, do you want any?" She shook her head, and he left, clearly giving us space to talk. "I spoke to Michael," Amanda said once we were alone. "I told him I want to make this right. I'll sign whatever documents are needed to transfer the house back to you. I'll testify against Darren if necessary." "What about his gambling debts? The dangerous people he owes money to?" She looked down. "That's my problem to deal with, not yours. I enabled him for too long. It's time I faced the consequences of my choices." Looking at my daughter, I saw something I hadn't noticed before, a strength beginning to emerge from the wreckage of her mistakes. It reminded me of Elaine, who had always found her greatest resolve in the most difficult moments. "Amanda," I said slowly, "what you and Darren did was wrong on every level. It will take a long time to rebuild the trust you've broken. But you're still my daughter." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I don't deserve your forgiveness. Maybe not yet, but everyone deserves a chance to make things right." I reached out my hand, and after a moment's hesitation, she took it. "We'll figure this out together." As I said the words, I felt a weight lift from my heart, different from the physical pressure that had sent me to the hospital. This was the release of anger I had been carrying, the poison of betrayal that had been eating away at me. Thomas returned, eyeing our clasped hands with surprise and cautious approval. "So, what happens now?" he asked. "Now," I said, "we start putting our family back together, one piece at a time." 2 months later, we gathered in the same courtroom where the emergency injunction had been granted. The difference this time was that Amanda sat beside me and Thomas, not opposite us. Judge Morales reviewed the settlement agreement Michael had drafted. "Let me make sure I understand," she said, looking over her glasses. "Mr. Wilson is dropping the civil suit against Amanda Brooks, contingent upon her cooperation with the criminal investigation into Darren Brooks and the county employee involved in the fraudulent deed transfer." "That's correct, Your Honor," Michael confirmed. "And the house is being placed permanently in an irrevocable trust for the benefit of both Jamar Wilson's children, with Mr. Wilson retaining lifetime tenancy rights." "Yes, Your Honor." The judge turned to Amanda. "Miss Brooks, you understand that by signing this agreement, you are admitting to participating in fraud and elder abuse, but will not face criminal charges due to your cooperation." Amanda stood, her voice steady. "I do, Your Honor. And I want to say for the record that I deeply regret my actions and the pain I caused my father and brother." Judge Morales nodded, signing the final page of the agreement. "Very well. This matter is resolved per the terms of the settlement." As we left the courtroom, a weight seemed to lift from all our shoulders. The legal battles were over, though the emotional healing had only just begun. Darren remained a fugitive, having fled the state after the vandalism incident. His gambling debts had been even more substantial than Amanda had known, with connections to organized crime that prompted an FBI investigation. He faced multiple felony charges if caught. Amanda and Darren's marriage ended not with divorce papers, but with his disappearance. She moved into a small apartment, started therapy, and slowly began rebuilding her life. She found a new job at a smaller pharmaceutical company, making less money but finding more meaning in work that provided medications to underserved communities. Thomas extended his stay in Boston, working remotely for several weeks while helping me recuperate. Eventually, he made the decision to relocate his family to Massachusetts, finding a position at a tech company in Boston. "The boys should grow up knowing their grandfather," he explained simply. "As for me, I moved back into my house once the damage had been repaired. Some things could be fixed, like the walls and furniture. Others were irreplaceable, like Elaine's handmade quilt and many of her personal items that had been destroyed or stolen. But the house itself, the structure that held so many memories, was secure once more." My heart attack had been a wake-up call in more ways than one. Beyond the dietary changes and exercise regimen Dr. Chen prescribed, I found myself reevaluating what truly mattered in life. The anger I had felt toward Amanda, justified as it was, had been consuming me. Letting go of it didn't mean excusing what she had done, but rather refusing to let it poison what remained of my life. 6 months after the settlement, I invited Amanda to dinner at the house for the first time. Thomas and his family were there too, making it less awkward for everyone. As we sat around the dining table Elaine and I had chosen together 30 years before, I felt her presence acutely, as if she were watching over us, pleased to see her family attempting to heal. After dinner, I took Amanda into my study and showed her something I had kept hidden for years, a box of letters Elaine had written to each of the children before she died. "She asked me to give these to you and Thomas when the time was right," I explained, handing Amanda an envelope with her name written in Elaine's elegant script. "I think now is that time." Amanda's hands trembled as she took the letter. Mom knew she was dying? She knew. She faced it with more courage than I could have imagined. These letters were her way of being present for moments she knew she would miss. As Amanda read her mother's final words to her, tears streaming down her face, I saw something change in her expression. A hardness melted away, replaced by a vulnerability I hadn't seen since she was young. "She knew me so well," Amanda whispered, carefully folding the letter. "Better than I knew myself. She warned me about making choices out of fear rather than integrity. If only I had remembered that sooner." "It's not too late to honor her wisdom now," I said gently. The road to rebuilding trust was long and often difficult. There were setbacks, moments when the pain of betrayal would resurface. But there were also breakthroughs, small victories of connection that gradually knit our family back together. Through it all, I kept coming back to a profound lesson, one I now share with others who have faced betrayal by those closest to them. True forgiveness isn't about forgetting the wrong done to you or pretending it didn't matter. It's about refusing to let that wrong define your future or destroy what can still be salvaged. Sometimes, the greatest act of love is setting clear boundaries and holding people accountable for their actions. It's saying, what you did was wrong, and there are consequences, but your worth as a person isn't defined by your worst mistake. My house stands strong today, not just because of legal maneuvers and careful planning, but because I refused to let bitterness take root where love once flourished. The walls that sheltered my family through decades of joy and sorrow continue to stand, a testament to resilience and the enduring power of forgiveness, coupled with wisdom. If you've stayed with me through this story, I hope you've found something valuable to take away from my experience. Has someone close to you ever betrayed your trust? How did you handle it? Would you have done what I did, or taken a different path? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if this story resonated with you, please subscribe to hear more life lessons from someone who has learned them the hard way. Remember to give this video a thumbs up, and share it with someone who might need to hear that healing is possible even after the deepest betrayals. Thank you for listening, and may you find the strength to protect yourself without losing your capacity for compassion.